30 years old from farms in Georgia. Not actors, not singers, nothing. They wanted real people. Well, not that actors aren't real people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I was 18 and from Westchester County, New York, which is a fairly opulent, seemingly opulent part of New York State. So I read the script and I thought, my God, this is just written for me. It's like they've been following me around. Because I thought I was Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
And so I went in, and for the audition, I told him I was 24. Remember, I was 18. I told him I was from Snailville, Georgia.
Yeah.
And remember, I'm from Westchester County. And I got my foot in the door. Had I not done that, they never would have even seen me.
Wow.
And then the second audition, the callback, I did honestly bring a six-pack of beer. I brought a six-pack of beer with me, and I sat down in the waiting room, and I offered it to whoever else was there, and drank a Pabst Blue Ribbon in the waiting room while waiting to audition for Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Come to find out, one of the producers said, "This is our guy," and the other producer said, "Over my dead body." I'm glad the one guy went out.
Yeah, and John, the Dukes of Hazzard came into creation by Guy Waldron in 1987, an original idea of moon runners turning into the Dukes of Hazzard. And the show itself was set to have only 9 episodes in 1978, shot in Georgia, Atlanta, before catching on with Warner Brothers, who upped all production towards California. And can you talk us through that period as a cast? Do you think it was going to be a one-season series, and then all of a sudden you hear that the Warner Brothers, you're moving to California, you're being like, crikey, we're on to winner here?
Well, we only did 5 episodes in Georgia, and then we moved immediately in January of '79. We moved to California. We were a mid-season replacement, so it is true we're only going to be 9 episodes. But remember, I had spent from 14, I moved to Georgia when I was 14 from New York. I had spent the previous 4 years during the explosion, and really truly the explosion of what Burt Reynolds was doing with Smokey and the Bandit and Cannonball Run and Gator, and I mean, there was no bigger star in the world than Burt Reynolds at that point. And Burt Reynolds was driving a fast car very well, talking on a CB, and jumping the creek. So in my mind, now remember, I'm only 18, I was not aware, as most of the public is not aware, of television shows that don't work. If you were aware of them, they would probably work better. So in my mind, the Dukes of Hazzard was going to be the biggest thing the world had ever seen on television.
Yeah.
And guess what? It was.
It was, yeah.
Because I grew up in that. I knew what a monstrous success Smokey and the Bandit was. And I was actually in that too. But that's a whole other story. So it was destined to be a hit during that time. Now, the fact that it's still news, the fact that the Dukes of Hazzard still has 4 and 5 and 7 and 90-year-old fans today just blows my mind. I'm so honored and proud to have been part of something so universally accepted by families all across the globe. It's humbling.
Yeah, and I suppose, John, that brings me to a point I was just I hadn't mentioned there, but just came to me now. Just in relation to that in America and in the show being a hit over there, but the 2 shows that really caught the public's imagination worldwide around that time from the USA and the transport all across the world was the A-Team and the Dukes of Hazzard, and there was a bit of similarity, if you think about it, between the comedy and the humour between both shows. But they had great cast, they had great storylines, and they just kept you to the edge of your seat in relation to special effects. And do you feel that there was something that sort of links the Dukes of Hazzard and the A-Team, that you can put them in the bracket? I know they're 2 very different shows, but at that time they were the 2 shows that sort of...
They were different shows. However, they had the very same second unit crew. Paul Baxley and Gary Baxley and Craig Baxley, all of our stunt guys, Jerry Summers, Russell Solberg, our stunt team, our A-team of stunt guys and girls, and our second unit director, Paul Baxley, were the same stunt team and second unit director as on A-team.
It's no wonder.
And get this, and the Knight Rider, and Fall Guy. So they were the best of the best, and Paul Baxley had a way of jumping cars, because when you see this stuff in person, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very scary. But Paul had a sense of humor about just exactly how to jump a car, not only to make it seem possible, but to make it seem fun. And he did that with Dukes of Hazzard. Certainly he did it with A-Team. He was also the second unit director on Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and John, I suppose in relation to...
That's the common link.
Yeah, John...
Sorry, go ahead.
John, I suppose in relation to talking about the show and talking about character, I spoke to Tom and I spoke to Sonny, and they've both taught me great stories about James Best and the character that he was, and in relation to Ben Jones, taught me a great few stories about him as well. But I just want to touch on two characters that I didn't really get to touch with them about but I'll bring them up with you. I suppose Sorrel Book and Denver Pyle, who appeared in all 145 episodes, which is amazing. And what are some of the funny stories or moments you remember in Sorrel and Denver's company while in the Dukes of Hazzard?
Well, Sorrel, Boss Hogg, was a delightful and, believe it or not, very quiet man.
Right.
He was not boisterous. He was not loud.
Very different to James Best, so.
Yeah. And he also spoke, Sorrel spoke, I believe, 6, if not 7 different languages. He was a lover of language.
Wow.
So he was nothing like Boss Hogg at all.
Wow.
Funny, but in a very bookish sort of a way. Very quiet, mild-mannered man. Denver Pyle was 6 feet tall, a little bit. I'm 6 foot, 2 now. I was 6'3" then, but Denver was a big man. And a wonderful man. He was every bit my Uncle Jesse. And I wouldn't say there wasn't a lot of, he was a fun guy, but it wasn't a joking guy. You know, we came to work. But he was always asking me about how my life was, how my finances were, am I happy?
Yeah.
Are you taking care of your heart, John? He would say. So he in many regards, because remember, I was 18 when we started, Denver Pyle in many regards raised me. If I didn't have my Denver Pyle to go to during the whirlwind that was the success of the Dukes of Hazzard, I don't know what would have happened to John Schneider.
Yeah.
He helped me keep my head on straight.
Yeah, and that brings me, actually, you've probably answered my question there, I suppose. I was just going to say, after season 1 and it became an automatic viewing all across the USA, was it hard to adapt to that celebrity lifestyle? And how long was the Bo Duke character associated with you? Was it everywhere you went in after season 2 or 3, people would say, that's Bo Duke, or would they still be saying, well, no, that's John Schneider, he's played Bo Duke and he's played other roles as well, or were you just categorised as Bo Duke for a while?
Well, you know, it depends on the crowd. It depends on the age of the crowd. There's a lot of people that will still say, from the Dukes of Hazzard, and I'm on a television show right now that's on every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I think but it's the crowd that grew up with the Dukes of Hazzard. It's the 40-year-old disc jockey and the 40-year-old newscaster and that talks about Dukes. But there was a whole other crowd that talked about Smallville. Because have you heard of Smallville?
I have, yeah, I've heard of Smallville, about Superman, yeah.
Okay. Smallville, well, I played Superman's father. I was Jonathan Kent in Smallville.
Oh, right.
But anyway,